Magandang araw, Central Luzon. Narito na ang mga naging kaganapan sa ikalawang yugto ng 27th North Luzon Area Business Conference. Estado ng ekonomiya ng Pilipinas ngayong 2018, binigyang linaw ng mga eksperto sa 27th NLABC. Northern at Central Luzon may malaking ambag sa kalakalan sa bansa. Proyekto sa Northern at Central Luzon ng gobyerno, inisa-isa. Mga oportunidad sa Public-Private Partnership o PPP, inilatag. Investment opportunity sa Pampanga, kayang makipagsabayan ayon kay CGMA. Pampanga Megalopolis, ibinida. Timeline ng mga infrastructure project ng BCDA, pasok umano sa deadline. Punto por punto ang naging dialogo ng batikan na ekonomista mula sa University of Asia and the Pacific na si Dr. Bernie Villegas sa pagbubukas ng ikatlong plenaryo. Ito'y ukol sa usapin ng magiging estado ng ekonomiya ng bansa ngayong taon o 2018 Economic Forecast.
In 20 years, the Philippines will graduate from middle income to first world. And you want to see a graphic picture of a first world? Travel more often to South Korea, to Taiwan. I'm sure you're traveling very frequently to Singapore and Hong Kong, but those are two small territories. But South Korea would be the perfect picture of what the Philippines would look like in 20 years. Bullet trains, world-class airports, everyone with a per capita income of more than $20,000, no more poverty. That is my vision of the Philippines in the next 20 years. You know, whenever I give briefings like this, and I tell, and you will see that in the slides. I say, this is what we will be in 2030 or 2040. People in the audience usually tell me, Dr. Villegas, please don't tell about 2040. We will not be there to see it. Do you know my answer? Speak for yourselves. My mother lived up to 102. I will still be there in 2040. So, and I hope you can say that also. I'm sure Bing will be able to say that. She is so healthy. Now, what is the scenario in which the Philippines will become a first world country? It will be the so-called Asian century. And again, I'm so glad that the one who spoke to you is managing AirAsia, because that is the key. This century will be the century for Asia. But this Asian century is also going to be a three-quartered competition among, I'm sure you know them, China, India, in the ASEAN Economic Community, made up of 10 countries having a population of 650 million middle-class consumers. And that is why we are very fortunate, because we belong to one of the three contending territories. And especially if you are wise enough to start replicating your success stories in the Philippines, in our neighboring ASEAN countries. And which countries should you begin with? Think of the acronym VIP. Not very important person, but Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines. Those are the three countries that will dominate the ASEAN. It represents 3/4 of population and the economy of the whole ASEAN. And it is not a surprise that all the Filipino multinationals, the Ayalas, the Lopezes, name it, the Bocconways, Wishi, and so on and so forth, they are all over Vietnam, Indonesia, Myanmar, and so on and so forth. So that's my first piece of advice. If you're going to expand your business operations from the Philippines, to other countries, think first of Indonesia and Vietnam, that have very similar population and resources.
What has happened to us that has made us lose the leadership in terms of agricultural growth? Para po maiwasan ng present administration, kasi sayang po yung lahat ng naipundar natin na technology and from research work and all the efforts of those before us. What happened to us? Why did we lose our leadership on that?
Thank you very much for that question. In fact, that's my favorite question. As you will remember, a lot of our neighbors, the Thais, the Vietnamese, even the Taiwanese, went to Los Baños to learn from Dr. Valmayor and company all technologies of growing all types of agricultural products productively. They went back to their respective countries and they had a very responsible government that started providing them with the support services in the farms so they could apply our technology. We had the technology, but our government was irresponsible. It did not provide our farmers.
Now, there is one question with respect to airports. As we all know, Clark is being developed as another international airport for a possible twin airport of NAIA. We also hear lately about the project in Bulacan, which for us here in Pampanga, we don't consider it as a threat. In fact, we welcome it. We wanted it. Do you think that's a good, in terms of planning for the future, good for North Luzon, Dr. Villegas?
I fully agree that it's not a threat. If Ramon Ang finds that airport profitable, let him risk his venture capital there. And it's always better to be oversupplied than undersupplied. Because in any situation where the growth rate of a region is 8% or more, you always find that you reach capacity sooner than later. And that is why I think encourage whatever will be put in Bulacan, but put all of your efforts in making sure that finally Clark is really the international airport of the country. And Manila and Bulacan will just be auxiliary airports. After all, there are other cities in the world where you have really several airports servicing a metropolitan. Do you know that Manila already has 15 million people? Because Manila already goes all the way to Calamba. If you add Angeles, you don't even have to go all the way to northern Luzon. You will have something like in your metropolitan area, another 20 million people. And that's tremendous market for just 3 airports to service. So I'm not worried about a competition from the Bulacan. First of all, every time someone in the private sector or in the public sector mentions agriculture, he always means agriculture and fisheries. They always go together. So when you say infrastructure for agriculture, also infrastructure for fisheries. And you have a champion in the leading economic czar of the Duterte government, and that is Dr. Ernie Peña. Ernie Peña always talks about the blue economy. That means fisheries. And so the NEDA Director General has a lot of focus on fisheries. So you're very right. We have to think of fisheries in the same way as we think of agriculture. And let me just tell you, Megawide, that will be putting up your facilities in Clark. What would prevent an American from investing in the
What
Philippines?
would entice?
Entice.
Attract, yes. What is our edge among the Asian countries, including Japan?
Well, the number one thing is very productive manpower, as long as we produce the right skills. And that is something that is now being addressed. I was just talking with some of you, and you're already complaining about shortages of carpenters, of plumbers, of electricians. And so one thing that we have to do is convert our young and growing population into real assets by making sure that what we are producing in our schools actually match what industry is demanding. And that is unfortunately still a cultural problem. Let me just test the parents here. If one day, one of your children graduating from grade 12, in the K to 12, would go to you, Dad, Ma'am, I don't want to go to college. I just want to be a good mechanic. I'm sure many of you will have a heart attack. Why? Because we're still feudalistic in our mentality. We look down on blue-collar work. The second thing I would not favor, I think we have to give a lot of human rights to workers. I think there are enough human traffickers, there are enough people who take advantage of child labor, etc., etc. So definitely the second one, I want our labor laws to be strict because the number one factor we have called labor is a human being. He's not just an equipment or a raw material or a machine.
Thank you again, Dr. Villegas, for giving us an honest-to-goodness outlook of our economy. May we please give a big applause to Dr. Bernie Villegas, please.
Tampok din sa mga naging presentasyon ng ekonomista ang magiging takbo ng kabuhayan sa mga karatig probinsya ng Metro Manila. Para kay Dr. Villegas, ang tuloy-tuloy na commitment o magandang relasyon ng pamahalaan sa mga bansang isiniguro ang suporta sa Countryside Development Project ng pamahalaan. Sumentro rin ang 27th North Luzon Area Business Conference sa realidad ng tamang pagsusuri sa economic key indicators. Dito, kinasabikan din ang perspektiba ng dating Pangulo at ngayon Pampanga 2nd District Representative Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. Ang kanyang balor bilang isang ekonomista, inabangan ng mga mamumuhunan, stakeholder at negosyante sa rehiyon.
Friends, ladies and gentlemen, let us give a big warm round of applause as we welcome the former President of the Philippines, now Congresswoman of 2nd District of Pampanga, Madam Gloria Macapagal Arroyo.
Thank you, Ms. Carlos, for your very comprehensive introduction. Thank you also to the Chamber, PCCI, headed by our First Lady President, President Limuhoko, for organizing the businessmen of Central and Northern Luzon in this conference. Thank you also to Chair Emeritus Levi Laus of the Pampanga Chamber for inviting me to be a speaker here. Thank you to my colleague and ally, Secretary Raul Lambino, for accepting to be the head of the Cagayan Economic Zone Authority so that we will have something very important in North Luzon like what we have here in Central Luzon. And to you, the 20 chambers comprising this conference, thank you for the message to the businessmen of Central and Northern Luzon. Our time is now. Congratulations for that. Your statement, our time is now, is a bold statement, but it is not without basis. In the 20-year period from year 2000 to 2020, I predict that the Philippines will achieve a sustained economic takeoff similar to the economic breakthrough of our neighboring tiger economies during the 1980s. This breakthrough is long overdue. To explain why I think it will finally happen and why it's overdue, allow me to give a quick overview of our economy during the post-World War II era. When my father, Diosdado Macapagal, was President of the Philippines in the 1960s, our economy was second only to Japan. So all those tiger economies that became tigers in the 1980s and 1990s were less progressive than us. The Asian Wall Street Journal recalled that at the end of my father's term, our country was on top of Asia Pacific, except for Japan, in terms of per capita income, and one of the largest exporters in the region over Korea and Taiwan. Unfortunately, in the 1970s and 1980s, our countries failed to keep pace with a changing world. In that period, Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan, South Korea took a different path from ours and became known as the Asian Tigers. Our old philosophy still viewed the central government as an active force in protecting domestic producers and in identifying the sectors that would spearhead industrialization, while the Asian Tigers funded economic growth through earnings from internationally competitive exports. The Philippines funded itself by amassing a large foreign debt, just like many Latin American countries. We became the only Asian country to be hit by the debt crisis of the 1980s, losing perhaps a decade's worth of momentum. The adverse economic environment of the 1990s aggravated our position. Following the 1997 currency crisis that started in Thailand, our ability to generate public revenues steadily deteriorated. By the year 2000, our consolidated public sector deficit was bigger than our GDP. Imagine a company whose debt is bigger than its revenues. In essence, our national budget was being spent merely to pay interest on borrowed money. And that's when I became president. I had to roll up my sleeves and get to work, determined to turn the Philippines around. The linchpin was to control our fiscal deficit. In business terminology, I had to increase revenues, cut expenses, as well as leakages from inefficiency and pilferage in the form of corruption, in order to create positive cash flows that could be reinvested in the country's economy. For you, the businessmen, in reinvestments will be for items such as plant expansion and upgrading of skills. For our country, reinvestments would be for infrastructure and education and similar items. Where to get the revenues? When when all our revenues were going to paying interest on our debt. In 2005, upon my urging, Congress raised an initial 100 billion pesos through a tax reform package that consisted of 3 revenue measures. One of them, the expanded value-added tax, or EVAT, raised 80 billion of the 100 billion for the first year. In one bold stroke, we raised enormous revenues, but that required the highest degree of political will. Opposition came not only from the political sector, but also from the business sectors that would be adversely affected at the start. And then our efforts were made more difficult by the global oil crisis of 2005, when the price of oil rose to what at that time was an all-time high. And politically, it was bloody for me. The newspapers reported that my approval rating fell to its lowest level since I became president. My allies suffered as well. Senator Ralph Recto, who led the effort in the Senate, endured political setback as the price to pay for doing the right thing. It was just as stressful for his counterpart in the House, then Congressman Jesly Lapus. In the same way that you as businessmen should not be shy about your business accomplishments, since Sonny Dominguez has been saying it, and since Bernie Villegas said it to your chamber earlier, I will not be shy about my role in the improved and sustained macro stability that is now providing the foundation for our takeoff. Fitch Ratings is one of the big three international credit rating agencies. When in 2013, Fitch gave the Philippines investment grade, it acknowledged that, and I quote, "It was former President Arroyo's improvements in fiscal management that made general government debt dynamics more resilient to shocks." That was Fitch's. Two indicators are particularly satisfying to me. First, as I said earlier, I inherited a public debt larger than GDP. But by the time my term ended in 2010, it was down to half of GDP. Second, I inherited a poverty incidence of 39%. By the time my term ended, it was down to 26%. Now, President Duterte intends to bring poverty incidence down to 14%. This will be a tremendous collective accomplishment of all those involved in our economic management in the 2 decades from 2001 to 2022, because poverty incidence will decrease from 39% to 14% in only 20 years. This process will create tremendous business activity and open up good opportunities for all of you. The key today is as it was 20 years ago: fiscal strength. In business terms, a strong balance sheet and a strong cash flow. President Duterte will in effect do something similar to my earlier fiscal reforms with his own tax reform package dubbed as TRAIN, aimed at, among others, financing a significant upgrade in the country's infrastructure dubbed as Build, Build, Build. This is what gives me confidence in my prediction that the Philippines is on the verge of sustained takeoff. What does this all mean for you, our business sector? Domestically, I would point to two areas. First, the business opportunities generally to provide the goods and services that a vibrant, growing domestic economy in takeoff mode will require. Second, the business opportunities that will be available within the Duterte's infrastructure, within the Duterte government's infrastructure program. There are 4 related points I would like to make. First, the reduction of poverty from 39% to 14% in only 2 decades should translate to a new generation of the previously poor who are now able to rise to the next level of consumption spending. In the more developed regions like ours, Central and Northern Luzon, the result will be a whole generation of middle class who will rise to an even higher level of consumption. Second, this all takes place within the context of the rapid spread of modern technology. And this will tend to magnify the momentum for growth. During my time, or even before my time, electronics flourished. In my time, we created wealth by developing basic information and communications technology, or ICT. This is now evolving into a deeper penetration of ICT, both into our personal lives, our own personal lives, such as the spread of social media, and to our business lives as well, such as, just an example, with even small agribusinesses now able to project when to plant or harvest using their cell phones' weather forecast. Third, during my time, we identified regions 1, 2, CAR, and the northern part of Region 3 to belong to what I call the North Luzon Agribusiness Quadrangle. And the southern part of Region 3 belongs to what I called the Luzon Urban Beltway. The idea was that the North Luzon Agribusiness Quadrangle will, together with Agribusiness Mindanao, be the country's leader for agribusiness. And that the Luzon Urban Beltway will be the country's counter-magnet to Metro Manila. And that the Subic-Clark Corridor will be a competitive service and logistics center. Yesterday, Anthony Fernandez came to talk to you. And indeed, when AirAsia establishes in Clark, it will be part of that vision of being a competitive service and logistics center. These, therefore, have been realized. And it is up to the business sector of our region to build on this favorable position. Fourth, even before the train law, President Duterte had already been spending for road construction and upgrading. We in Central and Northern Luzon are now benefiting from the Urdaneta to Binalonan section, and soon from the Binalonan to Posorubio to Rosario section of the Tarlac-Pangasinan-La Union Expressway that started during my time, and we should now reduce travel from Tarlac City to La Union to 1 hour only. The administration, I understand, now targets the completion of another 655 kilometers of high-standard highways and expressways in Luzon that will cut travel time from Metro Manila to La Union to a little more than 3 hours. And from La Union to Bicol to a little more than 8 hours. This includes the 4-lane Tarlac City-Cabanatuan City Expressway by 2020 and the NLEX-SLEX Connector Road by 2021. It also includes the road network in Pampanga that was identified by June Palafox, together with our Pampanga Chamber. And the DPWH has committed that their allocations for Central Luzon, for specifically for Pampanga, will reflect the items that are in the megalopolis plan of Palafox for Pampanga. Similarly, the DOTR said that they will do their mass transport systems in accordance with the Palafox plan for Pampanga. As we have seen, domestic business opportunities will be abundant. Externally, I would suggest that our businessmen look at China with fresh eyes. As China completes the first 40 years of its domestic rise to become the world's second largest now, and inevitably the world's largest economy, it is now opening up its economy even more than in the last 40 years, and there are opportunities there. For example, there is talk of China needing thousands of English teachers, a demand that the Philippines is well positioned to fill. At the recent Boao Forum in China, President Xi Jinping explicitly stated the policy that increased openness will enable China to enter a new phase of building a fully modern economy based on socialism with Chinese characteristics. He announced that China will take the path of globalization and cooperation, which will start in Asia and serve Asians first. Since 2001, we have had 69 successive quarters of positive economic growth. Not even the global recession, the Great Recession of 2008, could pull our growth rate down to negative. Today, developments domestically and even in the region are perhaps as good as they have ever been for our country to finally take off. Thus, I repeat our prediction, which echoes this conference's theme, Central and Northern Luzon, this is our time. Congratulations and thank you.
Sa paglalahad ng dating Pangulo at ngayoy Kongresista sa esensya ng 27th North Luzon Area Business Conference, lahat ay nagkaroon ng baon na inspirasyon sa takbo ng mga reformang pang-ekonomiya ng bansa. Tunghayan sa aming pagbabalik. Saan nga ba nakaangkla ang pundasyon ng tinaguriang Duternomics sa North at Central Luzon? Ang mga tinatawag na finance domestic investments na sagot sa pagpapahusay ng mabilis na kalakalan, ipaliliwanag ng Bases Conversion Development Authority. Magbabalik po ang 27th North Luzon Area Business Conference Central Luzon TV 36 special coverage.